Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for our third parent forum. I'm Mike Healy, the superintendent of Argyle, and I want to start by saying thank you for all of your support and your feedback, your ideas. Thank you for taking our phone calls about transportation and completing our surveys. And thank you for using our info@argylecsd email address to send your questions. They've been very helpful, and it's really helped us shape our reopening plan for September. So the goal of these sessions are to provide you with an opportunity to hear our plan, to seek clarification, to ask questions, and to make sure that you have all the information you need to feel as comfortable as possible when making a decision of how your student will reenter school in September. The format of Webex meetings, as you come in, you're on mute. There tends to be a lot of background noise, so we have everybody muted while I'm presenting. And there's a feature, a chat feature on Webex. It's a little bubble on the bottom of your screen. You can enter any questions or comments there. So as I go through our reopening plan, if you have questions or clarification that you're wondering about, please enter it there. And once I go through our overview, I'll respond to your questions and to your comments. I also have, we also have posted on our website a reopening plan document. So the questions that you send in or you ask here are updated on this document. So after this session, we'll update the document so you have that to reference if need be. So as you know, the state has required school districts to submit a reopening plan that consists of 3 different models. One, a reopening plan for full in-person instruction. One, a plan for remote instruction, should that happen, similar to what happened in the spring. And also a hybrid model where if we needed to, we could merge a remote and in-person instruction. Based on the district's physical size, our school enrollment, and our transportation program, we were able to develop a plan that will allow all students to come back in person every day, grades K through 12. And you know, that comes with a lot of shifts and changes that we'll talk about. But we feel confident that we can do that, and we can do it in a manner that's safe, that is in line with the guidance from the Department of Health and from the New York State Education Department, and does so while providing students the in-person instruction that we know is so important. At the same time, we're also providing parents the opportunity to opt their kids into a remote learning environment. So parents who are not comfortable sending their kids back to in-person instruction will still be able to participate through remote instruction. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So let me give you the background about how we developed our reopening for in-person. And it really, the biggest hurdle we faced when we looked at how do we develop this plan is, can we get all of our students here? You know, our transportation, our bus situation, we had to reduce numbers. So we were able to fit the students who need to be transported on our buses to school, on our buses for a normal route and a normal dismissal, by reducing those numbers. So I'll share a little more detail on that, but that was a really big hurdle, and you know, a lot of thanks to everyone for you know, accommodating some shifts and how we drop our students off in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon. I know a lot more people are committing to doing that, and that really helped us with our reopening plan. Inside the building, we were able to meet requirements of social distancing within the classroom by lowering our class sizes, and in the high school, the junior, senior high school, our section sizes. So we created in the elementary school another section of second grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade. And we did that because our numbers were large enough in those 4 grade levels to necessitate another section to bring our class sizes down. So at this point, all of our class sizes, I would say the majority of our class sizes, K through 12, are below 15. And, we've mapped our classrooms out with 6-foot circles. We've built actually a template where we're laying our classrooms out so we can comfortably and safely fit those number of desks in those classrooms. At the junior, senior, well, I should say too, people are curious about who's teaching those new classes. We were able to staff our new sections of elementary with existing elementary teachers in the building. So, for example, second grade will be instructed, the new section will be instructed by Mariah Roberson, who's a reading teacher in the district, who's also certified elementary. So she'll move into that section. Fourth grade will be instructed by Mrs. Cease. Fifth grade, Mrs. Cook, who was a pre-K teacher in the past. We're not able to offer pre-K for this year. So Mrs. Cook will move to fifth grade. And sixth grade is Noelle Nielsen, who's our other reading teacher, also elementary certified. And I want to say anything I talk about that had to be adjusted or not implemented this year, like pre-K or some of our high school electives, I want to be clear that it doesn't mean they're gone from our programming forever. We're looking at it we're putting it on hold for the year so we can open in person. And hopefully we can get back to the programming that we've had in the past as we move forward. So I don't want anybody to think they're gone from Argyle moving forward. We've been very clear to make sure that this is a 1-year adjustment, and we'll have to adjust as we move forward. At the high school and junior high school, again, we really focused on spacing our classrooms. We looked at our goals of ensuring all of our students were able to fit their core requirements in their schedule, meaning math, science, social studies, English, and other graduation requirements. We wanted to do that in a cohort model to the extent possible. And by cohort, I mean, we're putting students in a group, and that group of students will take their math class together, their English class together, their science class together, etc. The reason we're doing that is we're able to reduce movement in the building by having those students cohort together and having our teachers come to them as opposed to the students changing classes like we traditionally do. We've done that consistently 7th grade through 10th grade. As the grade levels increase, 7th to 8th, 9th, there is a little bit more movement. In 11th and 12th, there's more than others just because of the level of courses they take. Students tend to take different courses. So it makes it really difficult to cohort everyone. So there will be some movement of students throughout the building during the day, but it's going to be significantly reduced from the past. We did have to put a few electives that we typically offer at the high school level on hold. We looked at our student numbers, and there's a few of our electives that had lower enrollment than others. So based on our needs, we opted to put those on hold for this year. But we're able to offer electives, just not as many as we have in the past. We did hire an additional nurse for this school year. We know that our school nurse is a busy person to begin with, but with the requirements of our our screenings and responses to potential symptoms of COVID, we felt it was appropriate to bring on another nurse for the year. So we did hire an LPN, and she's in district today working with our nurse. Our nurses are going through a Johns Hopkins certification program, which will prepare them for the assessment of COVID symptoms and appropriate response to that. So, and we're also offering our remote instruction. I talked about that in a little bit, but we're planning to do that through our Google platform. So our students who are remote opting for remote instruction, they will log on to their Chromebooks, and they will actually be remote learning from the teacher in a classroom, just like a normal schedule. So if 7th grade has English 3rd period and your student is opting to remote, if 3rd period starts at 9 o'clock, at 9 o'clock your student would log in and be part of that class, but just like a model that we're using now. Our teachers have gone through Google training, Google Classroom training, Google Meet training over the summer. We're much more comfortable with the system than we were in the spring. And it's my expectation that every teacher will have a functioning interactive Google Classroom and be very comfortable using Google Meets. That's going to benefit the remote model, but it's also going to benefit students in person as well. The features of Google Classroom are really important for all students at this point. I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about masking and social distancing requirements. So we're all clear on our expectations. Masks are required to be worn on transportation, district transportation, and in the building, with the exception of when students are seated for instruction and when they're seated for lunch, and when they're socially distanced, meaning 6 feet apart. There are medical exemptions from a medical doctor that the district will work with families on, but it's really important that if there is a medical exemption, it needs to come from a doctor and a doctor's note supporting that. I mentioned earlier our classrooms have been reconfigured, so they are spaced 6 feet apart. We're setting our elementary classrooms up this week. They'll be finished with our spacing, and our high school will be finished next week. On our question and answer document, I'll include a picture of what an actual classroom looks like. Really, one of the questions I've received quite a bit of concern about: what will a classroom look like? Will it be empty walls, and will it look different than it has in the past? And what we really needed to focus on inside the classroom was floor space. So our walls are still decorated. The classrooms are vibrant. They're alive. They're where our teachers are planning to have engaging, fun, interactive opportunities for students. But we needed to focus on floor space. So there may not be as many desks or file cabinets or tables. So it's spaced out more than it has been in the past. But the classrooms they look similar. They just have less desks. So I'll include pictures on our update next week, so you can have a visual of what that actually looks like. We've ordered signage all around the building, so our students will know appropriate spacing and be reminded of proper hand washing hygiene, and how to, when to wear a mask, how to wear a mask. So we're using the signage to support our efforts there. In the high school, there's a couple stairwells. We'll designate those up one way, down one way, and we'll make sure our signs are appropriate for the different levels, age appropriate. This year, students are not going to have to change for phys ed. Our locker rooms are actually closed. We're also not using our lockers or cubbies in the hallways. So students will have a designated space in their classrooms, whether it be their first period class in the high school or their classroom in the elementary, to keep backpacks and coats and things like that. Daily temperature checks and health hygiene. One of the requirements in our reopening plan from the state is to ensure that all students have their temperatures checked every day, and staff as well. For parents, what we're asking you to do is to check your child's temperature every morning before they come to school. And if the temperature is 100.0 or above, we're asking you to keep your child home that day. We're working with a company that we already use, School Messenger, which sends out our automated calling systems. They have a feature that we'll be implementing for you. It can be email and app based, where you can go on and whether it be a computer or a smartphone, and click a few buttons, and you'll be able to indicate that you have completed that temperature check for them in the morning, and things are good to go. We'll also have opportunities for parents who do not have internet access to submit a form, like a paper, in the morning that says that was completed. In addition, if students are unable to complete that temperature check at home, we will have touchless thermometers and thermometer wrist scanners at our doorways. Our nurses will train our staff how to use those appropriately, and we will ensure that students, as they come in, are temperature checked. One of the things the state is requiring as well is something called an isolation room. And what that is if a student does have a fever or is exhibiting symptoms that are consistent with COVID-19, one of our nurses will take the student to what we're calling the isolation room, which is actually one of our locker rooms that's been renovated. It was renovated during our building project, so it's spacious. It has hot or running water, has an exterior exit, and that's where the student will wait until their family member can pick them up. We're adding 45 automatic hand dispensers throughout the building. Our nurses systematically placing them in locations where students and staff can access them, and we'll install them in the coming weeks. Our custodians will be taking COVID-19 sanitation and disinfectant training, and the state has required us to develop a logging system of what areas were cleaned, what they were cleaned with, the contact time of the cleaning, and who completed that task. So we'll have a system of regular sanitation and disinfection that'll happen daily to ensure that our school is sanitized and disinfected appropriately. We've ordered numerous of the fogging machines, so at night we can disinfect the building when it's empty. We're confident with our supplies and our training and our system for sanitation and disinfection. I mentioned earlier transportation. That was the biggest hurdle, and I again want to say thank you for your help. So many people have committed to driving their students to and from school for the year. That really has been a huge help. So thank you. We can fit 22 students on a bus as opposed to 66 last year. So we're planning to utilize every seat. So there'll be one student in a seat on a bus, or if there's siblings from the same household, those siblings will sit together on the bus. That'll allow us to meet the guidelines of transportation requirements in terms of social distancing and transport our students to school. So we're always encouraging our parents to, if able, to drive students to school and pick them up. It's not always an option, and we understand that. But if possible, it really helps with our transportation schedule. We've had to reroute all of our routes so we can accommodate students. So our buses are pretty tight right now with seats. So we'll continue to adjust as needed. We're also encouraging students who can drive to school, and if their parents are comfortable letting them drive to school, to do so as well. One of the things that we did have to change with our transportation this year that's important to be aware of is because of the condensed number of students we can fit, or the reduced number of students, we can only transport students from the place we pick them up in the morning to that same place in the afternoon. So we cannot transport to alternate locations, and we cannot accept midday bus changes this year. The transportation schedule is so tight, it just simply doesn't allow it. So with the number of the increased number of parents who are dropping kids off, it also required us to redo our parent drop-off area. And if you've dropped your students off here in the past, you know it's been pretty chaotic out there, and it's needed to be revamped for some years. So what we did is, where we have our bus loop, our bus garage, excuse me, and our main entrance, that's our typical morning drop-off. We're designating that for junior, senior high school. So students 7 through 12, and possibly maybe 5th and 6th grade. We're still trying to figure out some of the details. Will be dropped off at the main entrance. That our parking lot will become a one-way loop. So the bus garage entrance will become our main entrance to that parking lot, one way in. Parents will loop around to the main entrance to drop their students off. And then the entrance by the sign right now, where our sign is, will become a one-way exit. So we'll send out more details on that, so you're aware of the exact details, how it looks. And then what we're looking at on the elementary side is utilizing our bus loop. So after our buses have dropped off students in the morning, our elementary parents will be able to come into our loop, drop students off. Our staff will meet you on the sidewalk and escort students to the right locations, to the right entrances. So we anticipate that process is going to take longer than normal. We're not changing the start or end time of our school day, but we're going to have to adjust it to accommodate, a longer arrival time and a longer dismissal time. So typically our school day starts at 8:15. We intend to start at that time, but we understand that first period may not be able to start to until 8:30, for example, as we get students in. So we understand the need to be flexible there. And on the other end of the day, same thing. We understand that we'll have to start dismissing students for their buses earlier than we have in the past. So that might happen 15 minutes earlier than the typical 2:30. We're in the process of timing our new routes out right now. So once we have those route times and arrival times finalized, we'll be able to give you a better idea of the times parents will be able to drop off students, so they're not conflicting with our buses. We want to make sure that's seamless and as safe as possible. Some information for cafeteria. Our meal programs are still operating. Students will still have opportunities for breakfast and lunch. Breakfast this year will be in a grab and go model. So when students come into the building, there will be our brown bag breakfast. They can grab the breakfast and go right to their classroom and have breakfast in the classroom. Our cafeteria has been spaced out so we can utilize that for lunches. Right now we can accommodate 110 students socially distanced in our cafeteria, and we have identified areas for more space or overflow lunches if need be. So we're working on a system where our students will still be able to go through the cafeteria line and pick up their food, but when they're done eating, we're going to have our custodians come through our cafeteria rows and they will remove trays and waste for our students, so we're minimizing the movement in the cafeteria. A lot of questions about recess We do plan on offering recess this year. It will look different than in the past. We understand the need to have movement and opportunities for students to engage with their friends and have some social interaction. However, there are recommendations and requirements from the Department of Health and New York State that any activity that they're using the term has increased aerobic respiration be socially distanced 12 feet to ensure that the safety of students and staff. So to start the year, this goes for recess and for phys ed. To start the year, we're going to require that all students wear masks for recess and for phys ed. Until we see it in action, until we have our system in place, and we can't ensure that recess and phys ed students can maintain a 12-foot social distance consistently. So we are going to monitor into that, and we're going to revisit that throughout the year. But to start the year, we are having students wear masks during phys ed and recess. And I know that's not ideal for a lot of parents. I know that's a concern for you, but we're doing it out of the best interest of our district and our students and our staff. And we'll revisit that over the course of the year. Extracurricular activities and interscholastic athletics. At this point, we're not approving any out-of-district field trips. We're encouraging virtual field trips. We're encouraging teachers to look for opportunities to bring virtual experiences into the building. And again, as the school year progresses, we'll monitor the situation in the area, and if those are able to be implemented over the course of the year, we will look to do so. There's a lot of extracurricular activities we offer here at Argyle, a lot of clubs and things that our students enjoy. At this point, we're going to start the year without them. We're going to assess as we go. Once school gets started, we're going to look at our clubs and see what clubs can be run effectively in a virtual or remote model. And we'll look to, I'm sorry, the lawnmower just started next to my window here. We'll look to implement those as we move forward throughout the school year. Interscholastic athletics, our sports program, right now, as of yesterday, we've heard that the governor will release information on interscholastic sports in the coming week. But right now, we have September 21st as the potential start date for fall sports, if they're approved. So if we get the go-ahead for fall sports, I'm sorry, excuse me for 1 second. I need a mower turned off. Go ahead, Jeff, turn the mower off. Thank you. I'm sorry, folks. I couldn't hear myself talk for a minute. Okay, I'm talking about athletics. Excuse me. So September 21st would be the start date of fall sports if allowed by New York State. We're waiting again for guidance next week, but Section 2 athletics has a plan starting in January for a condensed three-season sports program. So, for example, starting in January, there would be a condensed winter sports season, and then there would be a condensed spring or fall season, and then our third fall or spring season. I'm not exactly sure of the ways of the spring or fall designation for the next two, but there is a condensed plan should it not be allowed to happen in the fall. So we'll monitor that situation and we'll keep you updated on that. So we talked a little bit about remote instruction. Again, we're going to use our Google Classroom platform and Google Meet our Google Meet platform. So as I said, students will be able to log into the classroom and participate virtually. We're really focusing on minimizing the packet work. We know that wasn't ideal last year. We really want to limit that, and we're limiting it to only when a necessity and when virtual learning can't take place. One of the questions about remote instruction that I see often is, how will PE and specials look? Right now, if students are looking to remote into school, we're anticipating phys ed would be independent, meaning our phys ed teachers would send home things that the students can do on their own to meet those requirements. We're still assessing how art and music might look, but if possible, we'll provide a virtual art program or virtual music. If not, it could have to be done independent. So there's going to be some things that we just can't facilitate through a virtual, but we'll have accommodations to make sure that those activities or those instructional opportunities are available to remote students. That's a general overview of our plan. The complete plan's available on our website. There's the question and answer document on our website. What I'll do is I'll go through, there's a number of questions that you've entered, so thank you for doing that. Let me go through your questions and I'll clarify and tell you what our plan is. If I don't have an answer for those questions, I will find that answer for you and we'll add it to our question and answer document. Does anyone start remote instruction on the 11th? So our first official day for students for in-person instruction is September 11th. And what we're planning to do is we're planning to bring back small groups of students over the first 2 days. So we'll have this schedule out tomorrow, but what we're looking at is bringing kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, and then 7th and 8th grade in-person instruction on Friday, September 11th. We realize that there's so many procedures and informational items that students need to be aware of, things that they need to learn about entering the building, walking in halls. It wouldn't be possible to do with 500 students. So we're going to take that a little bit slower than we normally would on an opening day. So we'll have half of our students come in on Friday the 11th, and then the grades 3 through 6, and then 9 through 12 will be in school on Monday the 14th, and then the 15th we'll have everybody back for our in-person instruction. So like I said, we'll send a schedule out to you so you're aware of that. If grade levels are in person on the 11th, remote instruction would happen with those grade levels on those days. If students aren't in school, for example, grades 4 through 6 on September 11th, we would not have remote instruction for students that day. But we'll send out more details on that. Will there be reading help, advanced reading for elementary students if both reading teachers are teaching classes? That's a great question, and the answer is yes. The elementary schedule is nearly finalized, and I know Mrs. Wood will be sending out information on that shortly. But inside each grade level, each classroom, periods of time that they're calling intervention blocks are being built in. So the class sizes are reduced, so we have less students in it. We have intervention blocks, so our teachers will be embedding the reading support into their classroom. So it's going to look different than it has in the past, but there will be periods of time designated for intervention or support in the areas of reading and such. Will there still be an orientation for the new 7th graders? The answer is yes. It's not going to be like it has been in the past. Initially, I believe our plans are for students to have their orientation when they come in on September 11th. And if that changes, Mrs. Pissarro will let 7th graders know. Will there be different start dates for different grades? Sorry, we touched on that. When will we find out which route our kids will be on and expected time the child will be on the bus? Good question. And that's, as I said, we're in the process of timing our routes right now. So we'll have those routes complete by next week. And we will make sure you know if anything changes with pickup times or things like that soon after that. Question is, so can students utilize 2 different buses as long as it's the same in the morning and afternoon? For example, home and then grandparents' house for daycare. Unfortunately, the answer is no. It needs to be where they are picked up in the morning is where they are dropped off in the afternoon. It's one location only. If a parent has children in high school and in elementary, can they all be dropped off at the main entrance, or would we have to drop off the high schoolers first and then get in line to drop off elementary? So that's a good question, and the answer is yes, you'd have to drop off students at both locations. But what our plan is to have a time frame where if you have high school students, you could drop them off and then immediately drive around to the other loop. So yes, there will be 2 drop-off points. I apologize for the inconvenience, but it's necessary to reduce congestion in our main entrance and in our elementary entrance. How will students be released to parents for pickup? How will you prevent them from being released to the wrong person? So what we'll do is we're going to have our bus students load their buses first. We'll have parents pull into the parking lot. We'll have our staff with our radios, and we can radio who's available or who's here to pick up a student, and we'll escort them or monitor them as they're being picked up. At what point would the school be forced to shut down? So there's a couple ways that the school could be shut down. We're considered the capital region, and we're talking about when the governor talks about COVID response by region, we're considered the capital region. And what he has said is schools can open if the COVID daily infection rate in your region stays below 5% over 14 days, over an average of 14 days. So we've done that. The capital region has been below 5% since August 1st, at least. So we do meet the criteria to open. However, the metrics that the state is using, if the capital region infection rate were to rise over 9%, using a 7-day average, the governor said that would require a regional shutdown. So that would be a decision that's out of our hands at that point. And we hope, obviously we hope we don't get there. But also if we see an increase of COVID-19 in our area, or if we have a case in our school or we're seeing multiple cases, we work closely with the Department of Health, the Washington County Department of Health, and our school physician. We would make a decision on whether or not the school needs to switch to remote for a short period of time or remain open. So it's really, there's not a metric that schools are using locally, but it's a situation that we would discuss with the Department of Health and follow their guidance. What is the start date for classes this year? September 11th, and we'll definitely have that information out to you this week. Will there be kindergarten roundup this year? I know Mrs. Wood is meeting today to talk about kindergarten screening and a kindergarten roundup to the extent possible. It'll be different than it was in the past, but I know Mrs. Wood is planning to do something in the next week or next 2 weeks before school starts, so kindergartners are aware of the building and the bus and all the things that they haven't experienced yet. For the start remote days, will they start later than normal to provide parents enough time to get the other kids home and on a screen? I'm not sure I understand that question, but we're planning on starting our day and ending it, like we normally do. But I have that question, and I can reach out to you to clarify what you're asking. If a child is displaying symptoms, will the parent be able to immediately come get them from the school, or would they be held in isolation for a certain amount of time? Yeah, so if a student is symptomatic, our first call is always to you. What our plan is to obviously work with you. Our recommendation would be for you to immediately contact your child's pediatrician. And if the pediatrician isn't available, then we would work with the Department of Health. But yes, we're not isolating students. We are isolating them. We're not holding them for any period of time in the building. As soon as you're here, we'll release them to you. I should clear up too, there's a lot of questions about testing. The school district will not be COVID-19 testing in the building. That's not a requirement of the reopening plan. It's not a requirement from the state today. But what we will be doing is working with the Department of Health. And if a student is recommended for a COVID-19 test, we have the locations in the area that we can help facilitate the test for the family. But our first call is to you. We encourage you to contact your physician. And then if the symptoms are consistent with COVID-19, we're required to use our COVID-19 liaison to report that to the Department of Health, who will follow up with you. Will kids who are not on site be remote on the 11th and 14th? Okay, let me clarify that. It's a good question. Students who are attending in-person instruction, if their grade levels are not here that day, they will not be on remote. You got it? Thank you. I saw your thumbs up. Okay, thanks. Question is, what is the school considering COVID symptoms other than a temp over 100? So that's a good question. And as you know, COVID symptoms can be a number of different, they can show in a number of different ways. So I guess I should clarify too, one of the things we're relying on is the knowledge of our kids. We know our students. We know in the past if they've had allergies or if they get headaches when they read. So we want to be clear that the first time a student says they have a headache, we're not immediately rushing to the conclusion that it's a COVID-19 symptom. Our nurses will assess, but COVID-19 symptoms, the fever is one thing. It can show gastrointestinal. It can be a sore throat. It can be a runny nose. It can be students feeling tired. But our nurses would look to have, symptoms consistent with that. And once we contact you, that conversation happens with your physician and or the Department of Health. So they would determine whether the COVID-19 test is required. What will the process be for early dismissals? It's going to be similar to what it was in the past, where we have our system where you enter the building. If you notify the school ahead of time, the student would come to you, and we'd escort them to you. We understand that appointments happen at all times, and people need to come and go at different times. So we're not looking to change that up, other than advance notice. A phone call to our office to let us know you're on your way. Will the high school students be released like usual? They will all walk out to parents in the parking lot. The plan will be for them to walk out to the parking lot, but it's probably not going to be like it was. In the past, it's been kind of a herd moving out. So we'll do that in a systematic way to ensure that we have appropriate spacing, and again, we'll have staff members out with our intercom system, our radios, that if somebody's here, we can make sure that that student's notified their ride is here. Well, that's the end of the chat questions. What I do, I guess I do want to say is, we know that things are going to be very different this year. But I want you to know that we've worked really hard to make sure that we are ready to open, and we're still working. We have still a lot of detail work to do, but our schedule, the structure of our schedule is created. Our bus routes are created, so we're planning on being ready to open and open safely. I know this is going to require all of us to look at school differently, and be flexible and open-minded to working together on a number of things. The first month of September is going to be very fluid. We're going to be adjusting a lot of different things to make sure that they're working appropriately. So I'm asking for your patience, but if you have concerns, please reach out to us. You can reach out to the building principals. You can call me directly. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody about your concerns. You can use the info at Argyle CSD email. That's a great way to get in contact with us. But please, we're readily available to support you in your concerns. There's one more question about lockers. We're not using lockers this year. We're going to have a home base for students, probably their first period class, where they can keep their coats and things like that. So there's one last question. Will there be an opportunity for children to socialize, seeing that how that mostly happens in specials, hallways, lunch, etc.? Yeah, we're looking for opportunities for students to interact and socialize. It may look different at each grade level, but those grade level teachers will have conversations with their building principals about how that would look, and if there needs to be a break built into the day at the high school, how that would look. So yeah, we're looking for opportunities for students to be engaged and socialize with their friends. It's just going to have to look different than it has in the past. So okay, so like I said, thank you very much. We'll continue to send out information. I'll post this on our district website. We have created a district YouTube channel, so we're going to look to use that platform to show some of the things happening in school and some of the how-tos of Google Meet and Google Classroom for parents. So we'll be adding to that as we get closer to the start of school, and we'll continue to keep you updated. So thank you guys for taking time to join me today, and like I said, reach out if you have any questions. Okay, so I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.